With this, ladies and gentlemen, the third global conference of the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network is coming to an end. Before I give the floor to our closing speakers, I just want to thank everybody here in the room again, all the stakeholders for their hard work and their dedication to collaboration. I think what we've seen here over the past 3 days is a true testimony what focused and solutions-oriented multi-stakeholder cooperation and collaboration can achieve. And I can tell you that we as the Secretariat, we are truly excited to embark upon this next phase of the policy network together with you and to support you in this joint effort. I would now like to give the floor to Fiona Alexander, who's the Associate Administrator of the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA, of the US Department of Commerce. Fiona, thank you for having also been a member of the High-Level Advisory Group and the Domains and Jurisdiction Program. Please, you have the floor.
And thank you, and hello to everyone. And thanks in particular to Bertrand and Paul for inviting me to speak today. It's a pleasure to be here to participate in the third global conference of the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network. For those of you not familiar with NTIA, ours is a small but tenacious agency that occupies a unique position in the US government. We are involved in all aspects of Internet policy. For more than 2 decades, NTIA has advocated for the multi-stakeholder approach to Internet governance and policy development. The reason? Internet issues are most effectively addressed through processes where different stakeholders bring a diversity of expertise and perspective and work on the basis of consensus. That is precisely what takes place within the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network, and it is why the product of our collective efforts will be poised to serve an open and interoperable Internet. It's also our best opportunity to foreclose the fragmenting effects of uncoordinated and top-down regulatory actions by governments. NTIA's advocacy of the multi-stakeholder approach is reflected in our engagement in efforts like this, but we also practice what we preach. Some of you may know that in the United States, we serve as a convener of multi-stakeholder processes. For example, NTIA is currently running a multi-stakeholder process that focuses on software component transparency. Our stakeholder-driven processes have yielded outputs including best practices and codes of conduct that enable industry leadership in areas of emerging technology where regulation would be ill-fitting or premature. NTIA has been an active participant in the Internet and Jurisdiction Project since its beginning in 2012. The Ottawa Roadmap served us well in developing the work for this conference. This time it will be the Berlin Roadmap that will guide the community towards implementable solutions to address cross-border conflicts. But we don't necessarily need to wait to begin taking steps in the right direction. It's no secret that the United States is presently facing a public health crisis from opioids. In 2016, opioids killed more than 42,000 people in our country, surpassing even the number of deaths resulting from traffic accidents, and there was a 13% increase in deaths in 2017. The United States has declared a national public health emergency. Nearly $6 billion in new funding over the past 2 years has gone into multiple programs to stop the flow of these dangerous drugs and help those struggling with addiction. And while the government has made significant progress to cut the flow of illegal drugs into the U.S., the illegal sale of opiates online continues. Here we see the Internet's greatest strength, its openness, is also its greatest vulnerability. Criminals are exploiting the open Internet for profit and endangering the health of the American public in that process. To help address this crisis, NTA is borrowing from the work of the Domains and Jurisdictions Contact Group. We recently announced a partnership with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, on a novel approach to work with a handful of U.S.-based domain name registries that will enhance the FDA's efforts to protect U.S. consumers from opioids that are illegally being offered for sale online. Specifically, we are developing a framework of cooperation with the parties involved, including pilot programs to trial so-called trusted notifier processes. The FDA has the expertise to identify websites used to engage in illegal activity in violation of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, or FDCA. This includes websites where criminals offer misbranded and or unapproved opioids to U.S. consumers. Under this pilot program, after having requested action by the website owner or operator, as well as the relevant registrar, the FDA will notify participating registries of such websites. They will require that the registry take some form of action regarding the domain name registration. Given the unique legal framework under the FDCA, This program will trial an expedited process for acting upon domain name suspension requests when those requests are based on website content that meets a very clear and a very high threshold of illegal activity. NTIA is confident that this approach can be designed in a way to allow domain industry actors to take action more quickly and better protect the public, while at the same time incorporating the operational norms and criteria developed by the Domains and Jurisdictions Contact Group. The framework of collaboration will help provide transparency and accountability in the domain name system and inform future conversations about so-called trusted notifier programs that are expected to take place at ICANN. NTIA has years of experience crafting creative solutions to complex problems with stakeholders in the online space, and we look forward to doing all we can do to help solve the opioid crisis in the United States. Before concluding my remarks, I'd like to say a few words about the importance of the Internet and Jurisdiction Initiative and our shared path forward. We are here today in Berlin because we share a commitment to the future of the global Internet, because we want it to continue to improve our lives, and because we want to solve cross-border conflicts in a smart way that will support how the Internet works. As someone who has been personally involved with this initiative since its very beginning, and I'm going to say even before its beginning, if I think back to that workshop in Nairobi at the IGF, I can attest to how far it has come. The journey to address the tension between the cross-border nature of the Internet and national jurisdictions has not been rushed. It has and will continue to be thoughtful, deliberate, and comprehensive. There is further work to be done, but it's now incumbent upon us to begin to integrate the work of the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network into practice, when and where it fits. Let us do that with the same care that was taken in developing the work product that we have discussed the past few days. NTIA looks forward to continuing to engaging with members of this community and to help advance multi-stakeholder developed solutions to the most pressing legal and policy challenges of our time. Thank you very much, and congratulations again for such a great couple of days. We really appreciated it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those words. I now would like to give the floor to Alan Kessel, who's the Assistant Deputy Minister of Global Affairs Canada. And again, a deep thank you to Canada for having been the host of the second Global Conference of the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network, and for the strong engagement in the three programs of the Policy Network. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you to the German government, as well as to Internet and Jurisdictional Policy Network, especially to the Secretariat, Paul, Bertrand, and your incredible team for organizing and hosting this third conference. We are delighted to be here. We have a substantial Canadian delegation. David McGovern, who opened the conference from our Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Ministry, and together with a team from our Foreign Ministry as well. I've been asked to say a few words in closing. I had the same honor 1.5 years ago at the second conference in Ottawa, where the Government of Canada was an organizing partner. At that time, I asked these questions. How do we develop appropriate governance mechanisms for our global digital society? How do we understand sovereignty in the digital age? And how do we ensure that international law and the international rule of law extends to all actors on the internet? And how do we define the respective roles of public and private actors in order to ensure a free and open internet and a rules-based cyberspace? These questions, I would humbly suggest, remain relevant today. And as I noted in 2018, the stakes are very high. Global and national security and stability, human rights, sovereignty, the free exchange of ideas, and access to information for all of our world citizens, and more. Happily, the I&J network continues relentlessly to address the issues at hand. This week's conference has been a big success. First, it succeeded in assembling this diverse group of stakeholders for a highly focused, well-curated discussion. Secondly, it has helped generate a new roadmap of practical next steps to address internet and jurisdiction challenges around the globe. The real added value of the multi-stakeholder approach is that INJ's signature was reflected this week, as it was in the Ottawa roadmap that brought us here. The document was designed to focus and shape future dialogue and approaches. The Government of Canada saw the second global conference as a significant accomplishment. However, we did not simply declare victory, post photos and pithy comments on social media, and move on to other projects. On the contrary, we sustained our engagement, rolling up our sleeves, with so many of you to follow the Ottawa roadmap all the way to Berlin this week. Canadian officials are active in all three work streams, including our work here. The operational approaches document builds on priorities and parameters in the Ottawa roadmap. These operational approaches documents in turn provide a solid basis for our discussions this week, leading to some logical next steps for our continued engagement and action. The unifying thread through all of this engagement is of the diverse stakeholders that make up the network. Let me commend all of you who have engaged along the road from Ottawa to Berlin. Together we have accomplished more than any of us could on our own, while allowing us to advance our interests and share our perspectives and experiences. Allow me, before closing, to say a few words from the perspective of an international lawyer and a representative of a state. Cyberspace and the internet have irrevocably changed our lives. They challenge our established patterns of acting and interacting as individuals and states. This continues to create many novel and complex questions for international law, questions about sovereignty, forms of jurisdiction, and borders. These can be distilled into one core question. Do we want the internet to continue to develop as part of the rules-based international order? I think we would all answer with a resounding yes. There is today a living web of agreements, principles, rules, and practices that make the internet work. These already address, in often coherent but sometimes contradictory ways, many of the jurisdictional issues that arise. So the challenge becomes that of legal interoperability and coherence. These need to be the focus of future work in this field, and we have this week affirmed our acquis in this regard. The acid test for our work over the last years and into the future is really twofold. Have we produced material that will be useful for the various actors, states, industry, and others, in the multiple ongoing processes, whether negotiation of a new protocol to the Budapest Convention or drafting a new law in any given state? And do the proposed solutions we craft together attract the interest and support of a broader set of stakeholders around the globe? In closing, let me underline the importance of continued engagement in the multi-stakeholder process going forward. Canada, for its part, will remain engaged, and I'd like to encourage other stakeholders to remain engaged as well. We look forward to continued fruitful cooperation with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would now like to give the floor to Mary UDUMA, who's the chairwoman of the Nigerian Internet Governance Forum. Mary, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to apologize for my accent. You may not hear me clearly, but I try to speak slowly so that you can understand what I'm saying. My name is Mary UDUMA, and I've been in this space for about getting to 20 years, from the WISIS 2003 to WISIS 2005 to IGF to ICANN, and the space is still widening. And I want to also thank Bertrand and his team for inviting me to be among or partake in this unique and uncommon. I call it uncommon because initially I did not understand. I was a bit confused, so I had to cry out to ask, why are we here? What are we intending to achieve? But having been here for 3 days in the gathering of the brightest minds in judiciary, technology, and policy processes, I have come to realize that this is a place to be. This is a platform where we could interact. And it has given me the opportunity to meet my old friends and got new ones like Karen and Deborah that I interacted with while we're doing the breakout session. The world is increasingly witnessing a new dimension of digital development, digital economy, digital everything. We can talk about the AIs, the big data, the IoT, and the gap, the disparity is increasing between the North and the global South, especially Africa. Africa is not there at the global level where negotiations, where debates, where processes that affect the digital development in our continent. And so it's an opportunity for us. And I want to say that the actors, the big ones, the states, the big ones, can negotiate, can understand, can show, in our own language we say muzzle, when you find out that you have the same strength with anybody. Because in my breakout session, I heard about US negotiating with EU, but you can't hear US negotiating with Africa. You cannot hear Europe negotiating with Africa. But decisions that are made in US, decisions that are made in Europe, they all affect what we do down there in Africa. So going by the work that we all have done for the past 3 days, I can say that the message of communication, criteria, and cooperation is very clear. What is it? Decisions or legal frameworks in one country increasingly can impact others. This may be positive if it is allowed to be positive, and it could be negative to national legislation and maybe conflicts, may find conflicts. But this also means that one country is increasingly impacted by decisions adopted elsewhere. China takes a decision, Alibaba sells goods in my country, and Alibaba decides the terms and conditions of those goods that are sold in my country. But we have no say, we have to adopt it, we have to accept it. So, the fact still remains that we need inclusion. And inclusion, I mean that this discussion at this level should go beyond going for regional meetings, but to holding global meeting in the global South. That's one of the messages I would like to leave with the Secretariat. Maybe you consider that from 2021 and beyond. You see, the terms of service, we have little or no input into it. So when there are infractions, when there are issues of judicial nature, we rely more of what the legal and legislative issues are beyond our shores. So the program we had has given us opportunity, and I am very, very grateful that all of us have participated in drawing. You did the roadmap in Canada, and today we are looking at going beyond the roadmap and doing working and getting into the working groups. So, we are better informed, those of us from the Global South, when we belong to this network. I also want to say that the two approaches to the jurisdictional challenges on the internet are inapt in that it is not fully global. So we need to include everyone. It is not fully uniform. We need to include everyone. And there are some desirable resolutions, but when there's conflict, what happens? The program that I and J, operational approaches document, and the workbook provides a common conceptual framework for all actors. So I am included. So I'm happy that I'm included. So just like when we look at the internet, there are several systems, but they are connected. So people from judiciary, technology, the human rights, I heard Areta talked about human rights all through, and so those coming together and forming, but one not getting it, loading it over to the other, but agreeing. That makes it a lot of makes it a very good platform for us to play in. I want to challenge us since the bell is ringing. The two methodologies that the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network proposes to address interoperability points, they point to two dimensions. The actors, how they interoperate, and how the norms interoperate. So it is a great start for us to continue. And other people have said several things about the next level. And I want to also go to say that the question is now, how will all of us participate to see the framework go beyond the mere declaration? We should come up with a concrete implementable solutions. I charge you today to be the evangelist as we go from here. Be the evangelist of the I&J Policy Network proposition to the internet community, to your stakeholder group, and even government. For those of us from the developing countries, especially where government takes the upper hand, we should be the evangelist. And it should go beyond not only what needs to be done, but how will it be done. Please join me as we evangelize this proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is now our pleasure to give the floor to Henri Verdier, the Ambassador for Digital Affairs of the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and to express again a special thank you for France for having been the host of the first global conference of the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network in Paris in 2016. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So I'm a new ambassador, and it's my first participation to this network, even if I know Bertrand since for 20 years. And I'm very impressed by what I'm seeing, because, of course, obviously we need a multi-stakeholder approach about all those topics. but it's very difficult within a multi-stakeholder approach to work deeply, accurately, and in a very helpful way. Of course, it's difficult. And here I have the feeling that it's a good size, a good topics, a good representative, and we can deliver something. And that's very important because France and most of the people in this room think that we need to build a new international order, a new international regulation. And we'll have to be very smart because we will need a regulation, a digital regulation, so scalable, transparent, democratic, efficient. And that's not easy to find this. It's not just the old solution. And for me, it's difficult to say this because I started my first internet company in 1995. I was part of this great utopian movement. We thought that with transparency, collaboration, neutrality, we will change the world. And in fact, we did change the world with those values. And we have to remember that this utopia was accurate. And we have to protect something from this very beginning utopia. But now we have to face some threats and some challenges. And of course, we have evil doers. I won't enumerate mafia, states. And we have something else. We have the consequences of this attention economy. We have the fact, like Marie said, that we live not anymore within internet, but within private companies. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Netflix, Alibaba, it's term of use, it's a private sector with a very specific business model, mostly advertising business model, with very specific algorithm. It's not the neutral internet from the beginning, it's something else. So we have to face those new issues, and we need to work hard and to find something. And I want to share also with you, we spoke here today about security, about sovereignty, about prosperity. We have all those issues, but it's also maybe mostly a matter of democracy. Does the people have the final choice? Are we free people and free citizens in free countries? Can we understand and decide about what does the AI, what does the algorithm, who decide to invest on some infrastructure, etc. It's a matter of global democracy, and that's very important. Because government and companies can easily deal together, saying, okay, we know what is good and we can decide and go on. But it's a matter of democracy, and that's very important. And as you said, France was a partner of your network since the very beginning. We did host the first global conference, but I want to share with you that we will continue and to continue to engage ourselves and to listen what you are building. And that will be very important because we have a very strong digital diplomacy now, and we have a very strong digital agenda. And in the very next weeks and months and years, we'll work with you, but most of you know this. We'll work deeply about cybersecurity. We will work about terrorist content. So we did work with New Zealand about the Christchurch call. We are promoting within the European Union regulation also about the fact that about terrorist content like child abuse, there is an international normative convergence. We can agree together about the definition of the problem, and we don't want those content anymore online. So we want them to be removed quickly. But as we mentioned within the Christchurch call, with transparency and with counterpower, and we will need a global accountability. We cannot afford just global AI filtering every content. We don't want this. We want discussion, negotiation, transparency, people in the loop. After this, we will work hard on harmful content, and from our perspective, it's quite different. We don't have this normative convergence. We don't have the same definition. We don't have the same law. We don't have the same culture. And we have to find something, and probably it will be more with transparency again, because we need to know what's happened in the social networks, and we need to speak with accountable companies. And after this, probably we feel we need the beginning of a global discussion. that it will be better to speak about the propagation algorithm and the filtering than about the content. And maybe you know the famous article, free speech is not free reach, and probably we should speak about the reach and not about the speech. But it's just the beginning of the discussion, but we'll speak about this within the G7, because France has the presidency of the G7. And we will discuss with you also about the data, what we could call a data diplomacy. I know that you work hard about this. First, I discovered, beginning an ambassador, the global impact of the GDPR, and I think that we have to do something with this. That's very important, because very soon, 2 billion of human beings will have a kind of GDPR, and that's something very important. And we did agree with Japan, which leads the G20, that it's time to speak about a free flow of data with trust, and we have to define what is this trust we need. And it's not just privacy. It can be open source, it can be, I don't know. We have to define precisely what is, it can be to protect the commons, contributive common, but it's time to discuss about the free flow of data with trust. So it's just to take a rendezvous, to say that we will work closely together, and that we hope that it's very unique organization. And frankly speaking, I don't know a lot of places where we can work like this. Will remain to try to reconcile human rights and maybe digital rights, which are maybe part of the human rights, or maybe something more, and fighting abuses from evildoer, but also from government or from companies, and enabling the digital economy. So thank you very much to be there, and happy to be there also.
Thank you very much for those words. I would now like to give the floor to Brian Huseman, who's the Vice President for Public Policy of Amazon and also a member of our advisory group. Please, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Bertrand and Paul, for this opportunity to deliver closing remarks. I'm Brian Huseman, Vice President of Public Policy at Amazon, and it's definitely been my pleasure to attend this third global conference of the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network. Amazon has been a strong supporter of the network, and we think it serves as a terrific example for how constructive multi-stakeholder engagement can lead to viable operational solutions to difficult internet policy problems. So I first want to discuss the work that the network has accomplished so far, and in our view, why it's important to Amazon, and then I'd like to discuss our view of the future of multi-stakeholder internet governance and the network's place in it. So beginning with the first kind of issue I want to discuss, Amazon welcomes the work that the network has produced on data, content, and domains, and not surprisingly, Amazon has a stake in all three of those tracks. So we very much appreciate the tireless work of those who have been working to develop these operational approaches. As a global company operating in many parts of the world, we know how challenging it can be to navigate a variety of legal regimes in the context of what we call the borderless internet. At Amazon, one of our leadership principles is customer obsession. So kind of everything we do, every product, every service, we start with the customer and we work backwards from that. And I know that's a goal that many in this room in industry and government also share. And as a part of working backwards from the customer, it's ensuring that we have a safe, secure, reliable, and trustworthy internet. Because customers, to use the internet, to buy products, to use services and different technologies, they need to know that their data is secure and that what they buy or use is legitimate. And we think that the three operational approaches will go a long way towards furthering and earning customer trust. And definitely the Berlin roadmap that has been crafted here this week will help assure much needed implementation of those practical norms. But now the important work begins, ensuring that those operational approaches function as intended, and we at Amazon stand ready to work with all the stakeholders to put these concepts in practice. So on the next topic, as has already been mentioned, the network's efforts must go on. And I think if we look, even since we last met in Ottawa, the internet governance and policy landscape has changed significantly since then. It's only going to continue to do so over the coming years. As we've discussed, issues around online content moderation have been front and center. And those issues have led to calls for more and better collaborative efforts to mitigate abuse online, such as the Christchurch call, which has been discussed and which Amazon has endorsed. And as the network's global status report makes clear, there is an increasing need for more coordinated and collective transnational efforts to deal with jurisdictional issues of concern. We cannot take the cross-border internet for granted. We can't. It's the seamless and cross-border nature of the internet that allows Amazon to do our work for our customers, and that allows small businesses around the world to take advantage of e-commerce. We think that ensuring an open internet where anyone, large and small businesses, can innovate and trade is critical to the continued success of the digital economy. And as part of that digital economy and as part of e-commerce, there's the need to move data across borders. So in our view, policies that limit cross-border data flows drive up transaction cost, and they produce additional friction for consumers. Thus, in the face of certain countries moving away from one internet, we think it's important that we double down on multi-stakeholder solutions to some of these difficult transnational policy concerns. And in our view, as tempting as it may be to seek provincial, legislative, or regulatory solutions, voluntary multi-stakeholder solutions can and must remain a tool towards solving fast-moving and challenging transnational internet problems. And I think one example in the US where I am based is the work of the NTIA, which Ms. Alexander referenced, the great work that that she and her colleagues have done to convene stakeholders around important issues, and most recently, as was mentioned, NTIA's pilot project to combat the illegal sale and distribution of opioids online. So I know that all of us in this room recognize how vital multi-stakeholder solutions are for the internet's growth and success. And as the Global Status Report recognizes, the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance has not been perfected yet. It remains a work in progress. But in our view, the important work that the network has done so far should serve as a model for how the process can evolve, and we must build upon this foundation. So in that regard, I'm pleased that Amazon will be financially supporting the network next year. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Amazon remains committed to the multi-stakeholder process. We look to further engagement with the policy network, including its recently launched work track on the Internet of Things. And in closing, the fourth conference is coming up very soon. It's only in 2021, and there are many other policy efforts underway that are occurring now and before then. So time is of the essence. And in closing, I would urge us to let's get to work.
Thank you very much for those remarks. I would now like to give the floor to Mario Cimoli, who's the Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, which is an institutional supporter which we welcome into the coalition of institutional supporters for this conference, and with whom we have signed a memorandum of understanding for the next 5 years to enhance the partnership for Latin America and the region, and with whom we are also going to embark upon the effort of the first regional status report. And thank you also personally for having served and serve on the high-level advisory group. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I would like, I said, it's difficult at the end of this seminar. I can explain what ECLAC is doing, but you can read on the web page. Many of you can do that. I want to conclude and to say why for ECLAC this policy network, this institution, this process is important. I think there is one thing. This is in the world where we have a problem, and we cannot not recognize it, that we have to sustain multilateral processes. It is clear it's a multilateral process. When we have a process where we have countries, multi-stakeholder, representation of firms, and everything like that, we have the space for the debate. That is in this moment, in the global context, an important contribution. Multilateralism, for us, for United Nations, for ECLAC, is one of the most important active assets for the world. Okay? That I want to put clearly. This is a space for that. We stay here with you and all of you because we think that this can be an important contribution for that. The second point, we cannot say that at the beginning was the representative of the foreign minister of Germany that said we need more South here. And I said, okay, we need more South. Latin America here is not South, it's middle-income country. But why this middle-income country is staying in this process? Why we need this debate? Because we have to recognize that there is tension in technology. We can call 3 different blocks, 4 blocks, 5 blocks, whatever you want. But when one country has to decide policy, it's important to have these spaces, this debate, open space and open debate. And that is the reason, because many of the Latin American countries have to decide in the next 5 years, 10 years, which privacy policy is going to implement, how it's going to regulate, how it's going to be e-commerce there. And you can understand that we need these spaces, we have to maintain this space. And this is multilateral process in a specific, a political global context. I think if I want to contribute at the conclusion, this is an asset. We have to maintain that. It's an important asset. Second one, I don't want to say that all of we said here and to repeat privacy, human rights, everything. I think I want to recall all of you that the United Nations put SDGs have a multiple important goals. And I want to take in consideration 2 goals. The number 16, that is peace, justice, and a strong institution, and the SDGs number 17, that is partnership for the goals. This could be also a meta rules, a meta goals for these processes. And this is supporting all of these things. When you speak about the middle-income countries and the South, many of the European, France, German, Italy, Canada, all are working about SDGs, Brazil, and everything in Latin America. SDGs continues to be here. Basis, practice, and everything like that. And we can summarize that we have to work on this direction because it's multilateral, it's bottom-up, and it's really creating not only by debate, but people democracy. I think it's important. I want to conclude with the report. I think it's important we are going to produce the report to present at the next ministerial meeting in Latin America. It's going to be not only a report to the Secretary of ECLA is going to write with you this one report. We have another report, but this is going to be an important report, I think. Why this report is important, I think, and we have to include in this report, there has to be a little bit different from the other reports of the other country. We have to explain to, I don't say only the South, but I want to say middle-income country that have a trap today that is difficult to growth in productivity, growth has a problem of inequality, poverty, and so on, that what we are doing here is important for development. That is crucial one. Because many times we think when we have the debate that is moving from one country to the other, we solve everything. No, it's more than that. And we have to use this explanation to explain and to say to countries that is affecting growth and development in the next future. It's not only because we think that the interoperability of rules or roles and everything like that have to be put on the field. We need to explain why this is affecting development. It's affecting development clearly because I want to give only one example. One example. Latin America has a more largest inequality in the world, okay? The Gini index is larger. But we have employment in a small and medium firm that is about 80%, and productivity is very low. If we want to move on development process, we need a small and medium firm that can access to digital economy, that have clear rules, that have transparencies, that have possibility and everything like that. This is the only way to create development, to create equality in Latin America, but also equality around the world. And I think I want to conclude because there is another issue that it's more probably more in debate. The people that have studied all of their lives about technology have read David Lenz, Chris Freeman, Lucas, many people that wrote. We have to think clearly. You have to say that was a great mistake in the last, that technology is not neutral. Technology is not neutral. Technology produces results, produce effect on distribution, produce equality or inequality, produce concentration. It's yesterday they knew that the United States is debating about regulation, and the most giant on that, it is the debate. You can think about the words Sherman Act, Clearing Act, everything you want, but there is a debate on that. And I think this is an important locus to debate, not only for countries that put the issue on this scenario, in the most developed economy and the G20 and the G7. It is important for the middle-income countries in Africa, in Latin America, that have to debate and to create the rules. I think this report is going to be a good experience. It's going to be the first one. But we have to focus on what can move further this region. I think Latin America, but I think thinking in Africa, I think part of Asia, thinking also on development economy. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, really.
Thank you very much for those remarks, Mario. With that, I would like to come to our last speaker of the closing session, Gunther Grathwohl, the Deputy Head of the Internet Governance Unit of the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy of Germany. And I would like to sincerely thank the German government again for having provided this amazing venue for this third global conference, the special and remarkable venue, I think, that everybody will remember, and to have allowed us to progress in the best possible conditions over the course of the past 3 days. Please, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Now it's my turn, after almost everything has been said here, to provide you with the very final words in this conference. And perhaps I'd like to start now to thank you, to give the thank you back to you, Bertrand and Paul and your team, for organizing this and for providing us with the platform here to discuss and debate about all the relevant subjects around internet and jurisdiction. But I also want to thank you all here in the room that contributed very much to have such a good atmosphere here the last days, to have very good talks in the evenings, networking. The weather was perfect. Thank you, God, for that. And so I think, yeah, it was a successful conference in the end, and we worked very hard yesterday, and we found lots of new insights and hypotheses where we have to continue to work. I think it was very good yesterday to spend the day with question around interoperability, because we all want to fight for a really, truly global, free and open internet. As Alan Kessel said before, this is exactly that what we have in mind, to keep the internet global and to keep it free and open. And the internet should remain a global infrastructure, but what is not global and what is not only one is law. Law is fragmented, so we cannot find one-size-fits-all solutions here. We have to work on interoperability. And yesterday, I think that was something, at least I experienced in the domain session, but perhaps also in other sessions. As more as we achieve here, as more new issues are rising up, so work is not finished, we have to continue. Yeah, this is one thing I wanted to say. Then what was also an outcome here of the conference, the 3 operational approaches, very good, but also the key findings of the global status report. I also want to mention that here, like you, Mario Cimoli as well. We think it's a very valuable outcome of the whole network, we can say. because it's something concrete, it's something that describes the actual current situation very well. And what is interesting, in the beginning it describes all issues that are coming now on the table, all policy issues. And 80% of stakeholders are the opinion of that international coordination and coherence are insufficient. And I think this problem will getting even bigger in future because the world is becoming more interconnected and internet is gaining importance in general in the society but also in economy, and nation states try to gain more influence or control over the internet with different motivations and different intentions, but it's highly dynamic, so it's hard to keep pace here, so we have to update the situation, and we are very interested and keen on having then the full report. And now I want to build the bridge to the next big event, the Internet Governance Forum, also here in Berlin in November, where the full report of Internet and jurisdiction will be presented and discussed. And we are very happy to have this bridge here, to have this close connection between both events. And the Internet Governance Forum will take place only 8 kilometers from here, not the same venue, but a big hotel in Neukölln, which is also at south of the city center. In that context, I would like to announce also for all of you that today, tomorrow, and on Friday, there is a meeting here in Berlin in the Federal Ministry of Economics, a meeting of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, the central gremium of the Internet Governance Forum, a gremium that is setting the agenda and that was electing all the workshops that are happening then. And we have today an open consultation in the Federal Ministry, and we provided a shuttle service from here at 1 p.m. You can go there directly to the meeting of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group and bring all your questions, comments, problems, whatever, around the internet governance topic on the table. Yeah. Okay, when I prepared here my notes, a quote of a famous German poet came into my mind. That is, wir stehen selbst enttäuscht und sehen betroffen, der Vorhang zu und alle Fragen offen. That means the show is over, the curtain is coming down, but all questions are still open. So we have to continue with the work, and we will support you in the next years, and we will support the implementation of the Berlin roadmap, but we also have to keep in mind that we need concrete targets. We have to define what we really want, and then we have to bring it to the table, and we have to discuss it with the whole world. As was said before several times, also very impressive from Mary UDUMA from Nigeria. We have to talk also with Global South, or we have to involve them to get them integrated. This is something that the German government wants to do also in the IGF, as we will provide for travel costs reimbursement. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say here. At the end, thank you very much.
So this is the end. What is interesting is that we have fundamental two missions. One is to take into account that the cross-border internet shouldn't be taken for granted, and that there are things that need to be done to protect it. But what I want to emphasize is that this discussion here is also showing, in those 3 days and in the work before, is that it is not just a protection. It is also the designing of things that are new, that needs to be built in terms of managing the interoperability. And I think, in as much as it is a noble objective to protect what we have, it is also an exciting ambition to contribute to designing the new things. And in the tradition of internet and jurisdiction, there's always a dynamic tension, because the emphasis and the urge that the community is sending us is to say you need to both enlarge and talk to more people, but focus more and more. So we will do both, but we heard the message. Thank you so much. I want to finish by, in addition to the thanks that I gave earlier, to thank also the company that has helped organize the whole conference logistically, that was provided under the advice of the German Ministry of Economy and Energy, the company Wagedes and Schmidt, and also a particular thank you for the hospitality team that was there. And I want to share with you that I was very moved yesterday, because one of the members of the contact groups or the programs came to me and explicitly said, this person from the hospitality team has gone beyond anything that was really required to help me find something that I really needed. And I think that really illustrated, even to the hospitality team, the spirit of the conference, and I was really happy about that. The last element of thank you is the most important for me, is the thanks to the team that I've the pleasure and privilege to work with every day. So they're here: Ajit Francis, Xavier Guyot Camille, Edwidge Lundström. Come here. Don't stay in the back. Come here. Edwidge Lundström, Martin Herlin, Paul, of course. Thank you. You've seen them work during those 3 days. You've seen in the contact groups and so on the work that they're doing in the background, because a lot of the work couldn't have happened without them. So I'm extremely happy about the result. I'm extremely proud of what we've accomplished together. Thank you. This team is energized, and I'm energized after those three days about what we can accomplish together, what you are going to do, of course, not only us. This is an ongoing journey. You're going back now. Either you take a few moments in Berlin to enjoy the city, which is a great city, or you go back directly to your work. In your respective environments, you will be, of course, confronted to, again, the pressure of the day-to-day work, and of course, of what has piled up while you were away, that's the privilege of traveling to conferences. So, two things. I hope that the work that we as Secretariat facilitate is helping you, and any message, any feedback, anything that you share with us afterwards, saying, you know, what would help me is this. Would you be able to come to, or to intervene, or to make a comment, or share something in an event or something that I do? Don't hesitate to do it. And more importantly, I hope that the spirit of cooperation that permeated those 3 days, you will carry it with you. And as was mentioned before by the State Secretary of Slovenia, the more you can feel that and hope that the spirit that we have here permeates also other processes, the better it will be for everyone. It's been an honor to have you here, and safe travels back wherever you're going back to.